for everybody just joining, I've got Jay King with me here. And Jay is somebody that I only met recently.
Yeah, a few weeks.
Yeah, let's say within the last month or so, by a couple wonderful mutual acquaintances of, Carl Steadman and Mateo. Just been some fantastic individuals. And they brought to my attention, like, you got to meet this guy, Jay King. He's so good with, kids workouts for CrossFit and how to modify and scale. And so we started a conversation, and you expressed an extreme desire to take the Linchpin workouts of the day and start creating kids content on how you would scale and modify those workouts. And I just posted another one today. I think we've got 2 or 3.
That's the third one, I think. Yeah,
okay,
third
one up there now. So
yeah.
The entire point of this video is for people to get to know you and for you to just share some of your lessons learned for people that are interested in modifying workouts for kids. So first and foremost, give a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where you're from?
Okay, so I'm originally from London, England, and I started CrossFit, I'd say, nearly 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I started at a small gym in London, and then very quickly I trained to be a teacher at just about the same sort of time I started CrossFit. So they run really parallel. My sort of teaching career and me starting CrossFit are they sort of run on this sort of parallel trajectory. And as soon as I did my level 1, I was like, this just needs to be in schools everywhere, all over the world.
It just clicked.
And I had a chat with Carl Steadman on my level 1, and I was like, I need to find out more about CrossFit Kids. And he put me in touch with his wife, who's been heavily involved with CrossFit Kids. And then because the courses in Europe at the time were so few and far between, it took another year until I got onto the CrossFit Kids course. And at the time, it was, just when I just desperately wanted to get into my schools, and CrossFit Kids at the time was compulsory to have a CrossFit Kids program at the time, and now it's not. So now you just have to be a level 1. You don't have to have the CrossFit Kids. The CrossFit Kids, and so I waited for so long, and I was just desperate to get this started in my school. So obviously we were doing functional fitness for a long time before we affiliated the school. And we were affiliated CrossFit LPS, Lyndhurst Primary School in Camberwell, small, you'd call it a state primary school. We had, I was able to get into all the PE classes, all the classes once a week, teaching a bit of CrossFit Kids. And then we had after school clubs there. And I just followed that passion, really. I mean, it just, as soon as I started CrossFit, I was like, this needs to be everywhere.
So were you a PE teacher by trade, or did you teach other subjects?
No, I'm a primary, so elementary teacher. You guys might know it as in the States. So I'm a class teacher. Sport has been a massive part of my life, all through my life. I played a good level of sport up until I trained to be a teacher. And my specialism was PE, but I'm a class teacher. I teach English, maths, geography.
I've got 2 questions, 1 statement. The first statement, as far as I'm concerned, any teacher should just receive an award for what all of you do. I mean, my hats. Talk about an incredibly important occupation that does not get the respect and or compensation that it deserves. In my humble opinion, it would be teachers. So first of all, thank you. And second of all, I'm curious, and I hear different opinions on this. So you weren't the primary, or the PE teacher at your school. You're passionate about this. You're kind of stepping into somebody else's turf saying, hey, I know what you should do at PE, so I'm going to kind of, I don't want to say force, but I'm super passionate and I want you to do this. Was there resistance there? And then was there resistance in the school administration in general?
So it's funny because in the UK, in what we call them state schools, they're government funded, quite often there isn't a PE specialist.
Oh, okay.
So quite often the PE is left to the class teacher to teach. And
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, unfortunately, often people have a really bad experience with PE. They tend to, if they had a bad experience with PE at school themselves, and then they become a teacher, they tend to then put that experience on the children. So I spent a lot of time training the teachers, and they didn't do the CrossFit, but training the teachers to, because I was PE coordinator at the time, so we had a big CPD program at my school where we were sort of up leveling their subject knowledge of PE, and we would, if if they have a negative perception of it, then the children are going to have a negative perception of it. So we were just trying to say, you've got to be the champion for this. This subject has such a big place in the curriculum. It has such a big part, and my administration were really strong, but the head teacher at my last school was very sport focused, and
Okay.
PE ran central within our sort of school development plan. So
Oh, very nice.
he gave me free reign, really, to be honest.
Oh, how nice is that?
Yeah. Um, and I think the big thing that you had to do with the teachers is just prove to them that actually you don't need to be brilliant at throwing, catching, running, jumping. You need to know how to teach.
Mm.
And I think we see parallels with that in the CrossFit world. Somebody who can't do a muscle up can absolutely coach a muscle up.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's the same in teaching. You don't have to be the best footballer, rugby player, whatever sport you're playing, but you just need to have a good rapport with the children and like positively motivate them.
Do you have a sense of, from what potentially were humble beginnings, how much did it grow? How frequently were the kids doing CrossFit each week? How many kids participated in general?
So we could only fit it in because I was in class. So I had one day out a week of teaching in class where I taught PE on a Friday, and we'd go around and we'd get some CrossFit into the classes. And so one day, each class had about one day a week of CrossFit. And then we offered an after school club where initially that was two clubs a week.
Okay.
One in the morning before school, one after school. But being a state school, we were quite limited with our equipment, So after a few years, I managed to hook up with a local affiliate, CrossFit Peckham, and they gave us their space for free to run after school clubs and I then provided them with a CrossFit Kids class in sort of payment for that.
Okay.
So it was a great partnership. They're really supportive of getting the children down there, and we'd minibus the children down to the local affiliate, and we had two groups come down, and then the parents would do pick up from the affiliate rather than from school.
And was this, I guess, what was the level of popularity? Did you have 20 kids doing it? Did you have 50 kids doing it?
So so we had between 20 and 25 doing the first session, and then other children would come for a second session, and we'd have between 10 and 15. So I guess anywhere between upwards of sort of 30 to 40 children once or twice a week in the after school club. We're just limited by our ability to get the children there, to be honest.
Right, sure, for sure. And then how many kids pass through just the regular, Fridays when you would run it?
So I guess, we were having every child in the class was exposed to it in some fashion. So that's about 400 children.
Oh, wow. 400 kids.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Now, this might be... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think, it was really simple in its approach. We had 30 children in the class, and we were mostly focusing on, we didn't have any equipment, so it was all unloaded. But, I think one of my proudest things is that we had 400 children who were learning to squat.
It's incredibly cool. So cool. And as you well know, you can go so far with no gear. Just body weight movements, useful, functional body weight moves are going to serve those kids so well. Did you have any sense or evidence, and maybe it's just anecdotal gut feeling, because you'll hear every now and then, if kids are doing movements like this, they're doing CrossFit, they're moving their bodies in this way, that it has a positive, not a negative effect on their academics. It's not that they show up more tired to class. It's somehow, even though they've moved their bodies and exerted themselves, it's quite the opposite, that people tend to think that they do better in class. What's been your just personal experience in that?
Absolutely. I guess we saw that most with the Breakfast Club. the where they're doing CrossFit before school, those children that maybe found it harder to concentrate were concentrating for longer periods of time. They were able to, those that maybe needed intervention were able to stay in class more.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, and then I guess as with CrossFit, the thing that actually was the most positive is the positive relationships that you built with the children, and then how that then
I
how that had an
see that.
impact, how that had an impact on their academics, because the positive relationship you're having with them with the CrossFit then translates to the classroom. So you
I
have,
didn't even think of that, but I can see that being a huge benefit.
yeah, I mean, I when I was a child, I did better with the classes that I like the teachers.
Right.
You know,
One, I've got two kids in school and one that won't be in school for years, and that's 100% accurate. And you mentioned something interesting which I didn't realize, and maybe it's different over where you are, but I can say for sure here in the United States how many kids there are that have whatever is, I mean, the terminology might change from one country to another. From, like you said, interventions, or they have a specialist, or
yeah,
there's a behavioral issue, or there's something unique going on because of something that child needs to have, something adapted. And until I got a bit more involved with the local school system, I just had no sense of how big of an issue that was, or how
yeah.
big that population of kids is. So I would think anything that helps those kids feel better, focus better, get along with their classmates better.
Yeah.
Any of that stuff is going to be a net positive.
Do you know, we had a girl who she was actually in my class. So I used to teach year two, which would be 6 and 7 year olds was my class, is the age group I taught. And I had a little girl, and she had a rare genetic disorder. She has a rare genetic disorder, sorry. And one of the things that were discussed with her parents is like, let's just get her doing some CrossFit Kids. This is going to be brilliant for her muscle development. It's going to be brilliant for her, her balance, coordination, things that were
Mm-hmm.
heavily affected by her condition. And it was just the impact it had on her was amazing. Just the confidence that she had. It took weeks where she would just sit on the side and watch. And then gradually
Oh,
she
interesting.
she came in gradually, and then sometimes she'd want to join in, sometimes she wouldn't. And, just anything I'd say to any sort of affiliate out there, if you can reach out to anyone in this, and I don't really like the term special populations, but I like, the term that somebody who might have some additional needs,
Mm-hmm.
it's a really, really, it's like a micro sort of community where you can integrate them into your community, but actually it really reflects society. So it's a great way to sort of include people and that might have some additional needs into sort of your community, and it has such positive impact.
You just said something just in passing, but it stuck out to me as maybe it's something that came naturally to you because you taught children, so are used to
Mm-hmm.
dealing with children. But it's a great aspect from a coach as well. And so I'm curious, is there some differences in coaching kids versus adults? Because you don't too frequently, when you have adults, have an adult that's just going to sit on the sidelines for 2 or 3 weeks because, and that's quote unquote okay. That just doesn't really happen with adults, right? But
Yeah.
obviously that was something which happened with this one particular kid, and it was a very necessary part of their progression that, again, whether it's through dumb luck or through intentional choice, you handled very well. So what are some of the differences between, if somebody does want to get into coaching kids, what has to be at the forefront of their mind that might not be obvious?
I guess, I don't know if it is so different, I think there are, I'll come on to differences, but I think actually the similarities will highlight some of the differences, really, that you've got to treat everyone like an individual.
Mm-hmm.
They all have their own needs. Every child has, is unique, as with all of your adult clients. So I guess first and foremost is don't expect everyone to fit into a square box, because they won't, with the
Mm-hmm.
children. I think in terms of differences, I think, it's, in terms of the programming, you're reducing the intensity, and, you're focusing. I mean, I'd like to think that in the gyms that, we're still chasing that virtuosity, like coaches letter, you know, of virtuosity is that when I read that, that sort of rang so true to me. And that's what sort of drives me with the children, you know, with the virtuosity of their movement. And it's a slow burner. And I think sometimes we rush it a little with the adults. I think one of the things is you've got to make the environment really safe for the children. You know, they've got to trust you. They've got to want to be there. And it has to be really, really positive. You know, like you don't give exercise as a punishment. Whereas, you know, it doesn't matter to adults. You know, we're there to get punished, if you like. But,
Right.
you know, for the children, you want it to be all positive in terms of their experience of exercise. Because really the goal isn't to get a CrossFit Games athlete. You know, the goal isn't to create somebody who's going to get drafted in a sport. Actually, the goal is to keep people fit and healthy and to keep them exercising for their lifetime. And actually, if it becomes habitual at a young age, because they've had positive experiences, because they love turning up to that place, it's easy, you know?
Right, right. Is it an oversimplification on my part to think that workouts for kids, well, ideally a workout for an adult is fun. That would be great, right? If that happened. But like you said, adults will do something that maybe it's not fun because they know it's good for them. Like they understand delayed gratification. They understand that concept. It's a tough one for kids to wrap their heads around. So is it an oversimplification or is it accurate to say that for kids, we're basically disguising workouts as games and fun?
To a degree, yes, absolutely. For your preschool kids, for your children that are sort of 3 to 5, possibly upwards to 7, 100%. Like, and which is why in the videos that I've been producing, actually, they're not really targeting that age group of children. You know, the age group that the videos are really targeting are sort of your 7 upwards. You know, because actually you need the children physically there for those preschool classes. It needs to be a social thing where they're learning to line up, they're learning to play games,
right?
And it's all a big game. You know, the warm-up's a game. It's tag. It's, you know, it's races. It's the workout is sometimes even a game. It's a story that I make up. You know, we're going through the jungle. Oh, there's a gorilla. Let's pretend to be an angry gorilla. Oh, we're doing some deadlifts. You know, and
oh, that's cool.
And then so you make it into a story, and then you finish with a game. Like the game, you know, when you program for an adult, you know, you program your workout first, and then you can look at your timeline for your planning. You know, because then right, so you've got your sort of your timelines based on the workout. Well, when you're programming for kids, effectively, you want your timeline to be based on the game, because you need to get to the game at the end if you're coaching an affiliate. With the older children, say from 7 to, you know, into their teen years, the game is still there in an affiliate context, or if you're doing it at school, you always get to the game. And yes, that is the fun. The workout, they learn to love the workout, like really, really quickly. Like my kids, you know, and we work out at home, we don't play games anymore, you know, and my children are 7 and 9.
Okay.
And, you know, actually they've started really quickly to see the benefit of just working out. You know, they see that, you know, I win the races at sports day. You know, I'm competitive when I'm playing sports and games. You know, I can win the races in the playground. And actually just doing something that is hard and feeling that sense of achievement. You know, I've one of my sorry if I digress, but one of my sort of concerns before I was sort of took on sort of doing the videos is I don't mind messing my kids up.
Right. Right. I get it. Trust me, I get it.
But I was worried about like programming and messing up other people's kids. You know?
Yep.
So like, I remember you did a workout because we've been following your programming, and I've been adapting it for months, all through lockdown.
Okay.
And we were living in Thailand until recently. So we've just come back from Thailand. And one of the workouts you did, I think it was 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off of broad jumps. And a few months ago. And I was like, oh, why don't we just do 200-meter broad jump and see what happens?
I love it. And just see what happens. I've definitely been there.
I've spoken about this with Carl Stedman a bit. We spoke about it after. That's like, how stupid idea. Like, it was a long way, and like
It's a long way.
yeah, and my kids were like, you know, they did it. And then we spoke about it. And actually, sometimes as you get older and as the children become more experienced and there would be advanced kids, it's absolutely appropriate to give them something where they develop something between the ears, you know, and actually we've, tough things develop tough people, if you like, and they were faced with some adversity and they learned to deal with it. And I think, you know, you have to be very careful that you don't lose the fun. And,
Right.
you know, and like I said, messing my kids up is okay because they're mine.
It's a heck of a balancing act. And
Yeah.
and anyone who thinks you're gonna juggle, you know, you're juggling chainsaws in the air, and anyone who thinks you're always gonna do that perfectly is lying. You're going to make mistakes and ding yourself up a little bit. There's no way around that. And you're so right. We could take this podcast in a totally different direction, which we don't have to, but you're so right that I think about that all the time. You know, the role of a parent, and, you know, you could say, what is the number one role of a parent? And there's a multitude of answers to that. But at the end of the day, obviously you should love your kids and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, when you release your kids into the real world, if they are not adequately prepared for what the real world will demand of them, then you have failed them because you didn't prepare them for what they're really going to face. And if they're going to survive in the real world, they're going to have to learn how to grind, how to suffer a little bit, and how to do hard things, or life is going to chew them up and spit them out, you know.
It's funny you say that, because one of the twists in that broad jump workout was if they didn't stick the landing, they had to go backwards 3 steps.
That's fantastic. In an extraordinarily difficult workout to begin with, there was a penalty.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
But never use exercise as a punishment.
Sure. Yeah. You know, did your kids? You said they're 7 and 9 right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
When did they start working out with you?
So my daughter was 3, and my son would have been 5, nearly 6.
Okay.
So, and that was at the local affiliate. So when I was doing sessions for them, CrossFit Kids sessions for them, they would come along and they'd just have to be there for the whole time I was there. So my daughter probably started a bit younger than she should have. You know, she wasn't quite ready, but you know, it's paid dividends now. You know, she actually, if I'm working out, even if I'm not doing like one of the adaptive Linchpin workouts for them, she comes out and just does her own workouts. You know, and you know, and it really well programmed. You know, like she'd do like 5 rounds of like 10 squats, like 10 over the bar burpees, and some skips. And I was like, that's beautiful.
It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips? And I'm just asking this selfishly because our 2 older kids, our 2 boys, are 10 and 11, and they're very much into sports. I mean, whatever's the sport in season, they're playing football, soccer, lacrosse, basketball. They play it all. They're always involved in something. But they work out with me maybe 4 times a year. And I never push it on them because I don't want them to be like, you know, you got to get in the gym, you got to do this, because then they're going to hate working out with me and maybe hate working out. And since they're moving and doing athletic movements, you know, they're good to go. I know how much more they could benefit from doing this, so I don't push it. Do you have, and I'm hoping that one day they just come around. Now, I don't know if they will or not. Do you have any tips, recommendations for getting kids to like it or start?
Do you know, it's funny because we bribed ours. You know,
Perfect.
We genuinely, they earn their pocket money by doing workouts instead of chores.
That'll get it done.
Because in my mind, you know, it's going to benefit more than them picking up some cups or doing the hoovering or whatever it might be in the long run of their life. And actually, the way that eventually evolved, you know, there's loads of bribery, you know, or you can't have time on the iPad or until you've done a workout, or you're not going to get your pocket money unless you've done your workout. And eventually it just becomes habitual for them. And they see the benefit. Oh, that kid that I'm faster, I'm the fastest in the class. Or, you know, I mean, I think eventually that you don't need to bribe them so much, because they then will see the benefit for themselves in their sports. But
Nice.
it did take a lot of bribery. You know, we were in lockdown in Thailand there for, 3 months, and just we're all going a bit stir crazy. And we're like, right, for my daughter, I was like, for every 5 workouts you do a week, you can go and get a prize at the end of the week, which was like a really cheap toy,
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
So bribery, negotiation, and then eventually they'll see the benefit because of what it does to them physically. They'll see that they can do new things. They like the way they feel, I think, is the big thing that comes out of it.
That would be
cold, hard cash.
Hey, I tell you what, that moves the needle. Cold hard cash moves the needle. So, let's say we've got some people watching this. First of all, they can just, follow along every Tuesday. You send me a video where you modify one of the CrossFit Linchpin workouts for kids, and I post it on the CrossFit Linchpin YouTube channel. So that will be a treasure of information that every week just grows and grows and grows. So somebody can always go there, watch what you're putting out, which is fantastic content, and just improve their knowledge on how to program for kids by watching that stuff. But let's say just in general, do you have some guiding principles that you apply for kids' workouts, some do's and don'ts?
So absolutely. I think, and this, I've said it a few times in the video, is that with the children, we have so much time, and they like to stay unloaded or really lightly loaded so it doesn't affect the mechanics for so long. Because, you're going to want to just really drum in quality movement, and if they're not in like really ideal positions, it's absolutely unnecessary to load them, because children don't develop strength by maxing out. Children develop strength by developing an awareness and by consistently moving well. And so
a lot
first
of
and
adults
foremost,
would benefit from that message too, by the way.
yeah, absolutely. First and foremost is don't rush, and slow movements are better to start with. And also another guiding principle, I guess, is that as your children grow, you'll need to re-establish the movement patterns, because they'll need to develop new neurological pathways, because their body hasn't moved in that position being an inch taller. So they've got to re-establish it. So when you might have been able to load them previously, you've got to dial it back, re-establish the mechanics, and then gradually build up the loading again, if that's where you're taking it. Make the workouts short, no longer than 10 minutes. I think the odd time, absolutely fine to go a bit longer if your children have the emotional maturity. And keep it really simple. I think simple is best. And like with CrossFit, the best workouts are the simple couplets and the simple triplets. And it's the same with the children. That's where they're going to get the most bang for their buck, because if their workouts are too complicated, they're not getting the reps in, of say a squat. If they're doing like 10 squats and then another movement, then another movement, then another movement, actually that repetition is key. So quite often in an affiliate, or you might stick with squats like 4 to 6 weeks, and your variation comes maybe with another movement, or the game you play might be your variance, but you want to have like movement themes for a period of time, and then build on that base. So you start off with your sort of primary movements, your squat, your press, your deadlift, and then you gradually build on those as the mechanics become sound. So from your squat, then your front squat, your press, then your push press. And hold on there a minute, we've got a really good movement we can use there called the thruster. So we've got some core to extremity going on there as well, which we can teach the kids really quickly after sound mechanics of the press and the squat.
Okay. Let's just throw a couple very well-known CrossFit workouts out there, and you just tell me what pops into your mind as to how you'd modify it. Maybe for your kids, 7 and 9, right? So workout of the day is the most well-known workout in CrossFit. It's Fran, 21-15-9, thrusters and pull-ups, 95 pounds for men, 65 for women, kipping chin over bar pull-ups. What does Fran look like for your kids?
So for my daughter, it would look like 5 rounds of 9 and 9. And
Gotcha.
it would be just a bit of more. And the reason I do the 5 rounds is it gives them a bit more break. It gives them a natural break every so often. They're not holding
Hmm.
on for big chunks of reps. And it would either be unloaded thrusters if she was there. Um, My daughter can do dumbbell thrusters, so she would do dumbbell thrusters at 9 reps, 5 rounds, and then they do toe assisted pull-ups. So I set a pull-up bar just under their chin, and the feet very much same setup as the lowering muscle up. You know, your feet line up underneath the bar, and then you do a really nasty squat where your knees come over your toes,
Yep.
and then you stand up and your chin's over the bar, and then they use as much or as little leg assistance as necessary.
Perfect.
That would be for my daughter. For my son, um, it's the same actually. I'd do give him 5 rounds, 9 slightly heavier load, and I would, instead of it being a toe assisted pull up for him, I'd make it a little higher, and he's doing a toe assisted kipping pull up. So he's going through the motion of getting that arch and hollow,
I see.
because he can do strict movements, some strict pull ups. And potentially with my son, I'd do a 21-15-9 as well.
Okay.
But
Okay.
probably I'd keep it that. I think it was called Frankchid, that 5 rounds of 9 and 9. I think
Okay.
if you're looking back at those old articles, Falling Around with Fran,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then a lot of that stuff informs the way I program. All the old articles from the journals, and um,
And for both kids, the dumbbells are preferable to the barbell. Talking about preference,
dumbbells absolutely preferable to the dumbbell, because with a barbell you have to move your body around the bar. You have to move your head out of the way for the
Mm-hmm.
press, and so with a dumbbell you don't have to worry about the line of action of the bar so much.
So
All you
light
really want,
dumbbells are great.
just all we really want to finish is where they start position and finish position. Is absolute key. The bar path, that'll come in time.
Let's do one more workout because I'm
Okay.
just curious. Should kids go heavy? It's a 7x1 deadlift. It's a 7x1 back squat. What does it look like for a kid, or is it totally not touching it?
So for your young teens, your teens that have got good movement, I think unless they're sports specific, unless they're doing Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting, sort of that 13 upwards bracket, they're doing 3s and 5s.
Okay.
But yes, for those children that have really sound mechanics, have a lot of experience sort of with a heavier load, yeah, absolutely. For your younger children's, that middle bracket, I guess, our children's age, your sons and my
Mm-hmm.
son, my heavy days look more like really slow, deliberate movement,
Gotcha. Okay.
so let's really refine some mechanics. So we did, I think it was the 7x1 front squat, which was one of the videos we did. So with my son, we just developed some leg strength by doing and my daughter actually, some lunges and some slow, deliberate squats.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just focusing on really slow, deliberate. If you actually sometimes going relatively heavy in terms of the children is absolutely appropriate. And if you go on to, Carl and Rachel Steadman at CrossFit Ellipsis, I often pinch a lot of their stuff, if I'm quite honest with you, because their stuff is
Great.
gold. Their stuff is gold, and they do quite often like sort of a strongman-esque 30 med ball over a bar or over a box,
Yeah.
and like that is a really great stimulus for the children. That, and it's has such good real life application because it's it's the children lifting a heavy box in their classroom onto the shelf, the children lifting their bag up when they're going to school, the children lifting their bag into their locker if they have lockers at school. So the real life application, or helping around the house or the yard or the farm. So I think heavy days would have a lot more reps and have a big focus on deliberate movement, which I guess our heavy days for adults are the same,
Sure. Yeah. No, it's fantastic. Probably wrapping this up soon, but before we do that, I want to make sure, is there anything, because you know a whole heck of a lot more about this area than I do, anything that we've neglected to talk about that we certainly should mention before, just to get into people's heads?
I guess, I was really lucky enough to take a study group in the UK and Ireland through the CrossFit Kids section on the Level 3 study group. And I didn't notice I'd said it actually. And Carl was sort of overseeing it, Carl Stedman. And that is unfortunate. I think the CrossFit Kids course has become not compulsory, because I think the learning on there is so vital. You know, it's such a great resource. And I know, going back and looking over that CrossFit Kids training guide material is just, it's absolute gold in there. So it's a starting point for anyone who's thinking about training their kids, is look at the CrossFit Kids training guide, because it's absolute gold. Get on the course if you can. It's vital. It absolutely informed me as a coach. I've coached adults and children. The CrossFit Startup Curriculum is a really great resource. I think it was by John Gray and Todd Widman.
Okay.
I think I got the names right. I think.
Oh, could be John Brown.
No, it wasn't. It was
John Brown. Okay.
John Gray.
Okay.
And I think he's been a CrossFit Kids seminar staff.
Okay.
And
Todd Widman's been around forever for sure.
Yeah, and definitely Todd Widman. And they've got their startup curriculum is brilliant resource. And I think just keep it simple, have loads of fun. It's like the best thing you can do. Genuinely, it's the best thing you can do. I think one of the things that really inspired me, and sorry, I know you want to wrap it up, but
no, you're good,
is the Hawaiian Trail Run.
Yeah,
I can just like I've just what they do, giving CrossFit Kids for free is just amazing, and it's something that sort of stands so really sort of true to my heart. Like, I want to give as many kids CrossFit as possible for free, because it's going to just make everything better for them.
If somebody is just all about this, fired about it, and wants to, contact you, reach out to you, what's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you if need be?
Yeah, I guess hit me up on a message on Instagram. I'm not much of a social media person, to be quite honest. Social media becomes quite alien to me. You look on my Instagram and it's mostly sort of snapshot of what my kids are doing with CrossFit Kids. And
what is your Instagram handle that people should go to?
It's JAYK _VII.
Okay, perfect.
And yeah, I think I'm so passionate about CrossFit Kids, because it absolutely can change lives, just like CrossFit can, but in just it's exponential. If you get 2 kids in, then that's going to be their 2 kids in if they have children, and then their 2 kids, and then
Well, you are providing a tremendous resource that, again, people can find. Just go to the CrossFit Linchpin YouTube channel, and every Tuesday I put up a new video that Jay created that is top notch. And as that file builds, there'll be so much knowledge and lessons learned there. So dive into that. Jay, I know it's a totally different time zone where you are, and you made this happen. I truly, truly appreciate it. Thanks for what you do, and I'm excited to keep posting your content.
Great. No, appreciate your time, Pat. Thank you so much for giving me the platform.
Of course, man. Well, you have a good evening, and we'll talk again soon.
Great. Thanks, Pat. Thanks,
Bye.
Pat.